Tonight, we begin a small journey together, not to search for anything new, but to turn gently towards something already familiar, something you have been carrying for a long time, something that feels heavier at night. Here is a simple truth. Holding on is tiring, not because you are weak, but because effort, even quiet effort, costs energy. You may already know this in your thoughts. Your mind understands what has changed, yet your body still braces. Your heart still grips. This is not a mistake. It is a human delay. Knowing arrives faster than letting go. Letting go asks the whole body to trust, and trust moves slowly when you are exhausted. Imagine one ordinary situation, a relationship you once leaned on. It mattered deeply to you. It shaped your days. Over time, it began to change. Not suddenly, just enough for you to notice. You understood this change when it happened. You told yourself the truth. You adjusted your words. You lowered your expectations. Still, inside, something kept reaching back, not for the past itself, but for the feeling of steadiness it once gave. This reaching is not a failure. It is memory doing its job. In Buddhist wisdom, there is a simple teaching. Everything that arises also shifts. Nothing stays in one shape forever. Suffering does not come from change itself. It comes from asking things not to change. This teaching is not meant to scold. It is meant to soothe. It says your tiredness makes sense. You have been holding something still, while life has been moving on. Now, notice where you are. Perhaps it is late. The world has softened its noise. Lights are low or gone. Your body is resting. Your mind is still awake. Thoughts move more freely at this hour. They circle what mattered. They replay what almost stayed the same. You are not alone in this moment. Others are listening right now. Different places. Same quiet hour. Same gentle heaviness in the chest. If it feels right, you could leave a simple comment, just where you are listening from, nothing more. This small act can ground you. It reminds the body it is not alone. It lets the night feel shared. In the moments ahead, we will move slowly. We will explore real stories, simple moments from ordinary lives, stories about release without force, about allowing change without panic, about resting inside what cannot be held forever. You do not need to do anything. Just stay here and listen. Story 1. At dusk. A tired monk walked beside rice fields, breathing slowly. His shoulders carried work, deadlines, and a week without rest. He paused, feeling the earth steady, unchanged by his hurry. He remembered the Buddha speaking of effort, softened by kindness. When striving loosens, breath returns, and the body learns trust. The monk set burdens down, one by one, upon the path. Dear listener, your night can hold you like this ground. Nothing asks more from you now, except gentle, allowing. Rest comes naturally when effort bows to compassion. Story 2. An old potter sat near a cooling kiln, hands warm with clay memory. Orders waited tomorrow. Numbers echoed. Sleep felt far away. He watched steam fade, learning how heat never stays. The teachings say all forms change, even those we treasure. Gripping what cools only burns the hands longer. He opened his fingers, letting the warmth pass. Dear listener, notice what you are still gripping tonight. Release is not loss. It is kindness to tired hands. Sleep arrives as warmth gently leaves. Story 3. Under a single lamp. A mother folded laundry in silence. Thoughts circled, money, worries, and words left unsaid. Each shirt felt heavier than its cloth. She recalled kindness teachings, beginning with oneself. Care offered inward softens the whole room. Her breath slowed, shoulders eased, the lamp dimmed. Dear listener, you also deserve this simple care. Nothing needs fixing right now. Let the night fold you gently. Story 4. A night train hummed while an office worker stared outside. Projects ended. Roles changed. Purpose felt uncertain. Dark windows reflected a tired face. The Buddha spoke of changing tracks. Without blame, life moves car by car. Never stuck. The worker rested back, trusting the motion. Dear listener, your journey continues without effort tonight. You may lean into the seat. The train knows the way. Story 5. A gardener rinsed soil from boots beneath a quiet moon. Plans failed. Seasons shifted. Control slipped away. The garden slept anyway. Ancient stories teach patience with unseen roots. Growth happens without supervision. The gardener smiled, leaving seeds to darkness. Dear listener, your unseen work is enough. Let outcomes rest. Night nourishes without asking. Story 6. An elder accountant counted breaths after counting numbers all day. Mistakes replayed. Regret tapped gently inside. The room held steady. The teachings say thoughts can be redirected kindly. Attention returns like a friendly dog. Breathing became simple again. Dear listener, your mind can rest too. Thoughts may wander without punishment. Sleep welcomes gentle returns. Story 7. By a lake. A retired teacher skipped stones slowly. Lessons ended. Identity softened. Silence grew. Ripples faded before reaching shore. Buddhist wisdom speaks of letting echoes finish. No need to chase them. The lake returned to stillness. Dear listener, your echoes may fade now. Nothing more is required. Stillness remains. Story 8. A shop owner closed shutters after a long week. Competition stirred envy. Comparison weighed heavy. Stars appeared without competing. The teachings remind us of shared human struggle. No one stands apart from change. The owner breathed easier. Looking up, dear listener, you belong to this wide sky. Comparison can sleep. You are already enough. Story 9. A nurse washed hands beneath warm running water. Images lingered. Care given. Sorrow witnessed. The sink hummed softly. Compassion teachings speak of cleansing without erasing memory. Water carries heaviness away. Hands felt lighter. Heart steadier. Dear listener, tonight you may set sorrow down. Care continues without strain. Rest is also service. Story 10. An old storyteller sat by a window. Rain tracing paths. Years taught lessons. Not all needed remembering. Rain reached the ground anyway. The Buddha taught release through understanding, not force. Knowing allows letting go. The night deepened kindly. Dear listener, this story ends gently here. Your breathing knows the rest. Sleep opens, quiet and wide. Story 11. The lamp that stayed lit. Late evening settled into a small apartment above a quiet street. A single lamp glowed beside a worn chair. Steady and patient, an older man sat there. Shoes off, shoulders finally lowering. The day had asked for numbers, decisions, and careful words. Now the body remembered how to rest, but the mind still wandered. He listened to the hum of electricity in the walls. It reminded him of monasteries he once visited long ago. Monks would light lamps at dusk, not to fight darkness, but to honor the coming night with simple attention. The man noticed his breath matching the lamp's soft glow, in and out, without improvement or correction. Thoughts about unfinished work drifted through like moths. He did not chase them away or invite them closer. In the teachings he once read, the Buddha spoke gently about tending the mind as one tends a flame, not smothering it with fear, not feeding it with worry, just enough care to let it burn evenly. Tonight, the lamp did the teaching for him. It did not strain to be brighter. It did not apologize for being small. It simply stayed, offering what it could. The man felt something soften behind his eyes. Years of proving, fixing, and holding began to loosen. The night did not need his vigilance. The lamp would keep watch. As sleep approached, a quiet understanding arrived. Peace is not the absence of thought. It is the willingness to let thoughts pass, unforced, like light resting calmly in a quiet room. Story 12. The bridge at low tide. A wooden bridge stretched across a narrow inlet near the coast. At night, the tide pulled back, revealing stones and dark sand. An elderly woman walked there slowly after a long day. Her work, caring for others, often followed her home. She paused at the center of the bridge. Below, water whispered around exposed rocks. She had spent years holding families together, supporting people through moments that never fully healed. Buddhist stories often speak of crossings, not heroic journeys, but ordinary steps taken patiently. She remembered a teaching about impermanence, how tides come and go without asking permission. Tonight, the bridge felt different without the water beneath. Strong beams stood on their own, no longer hidden. She realized she, too, was standing on strength, revealed only when support receded. Her breath deepened as the night air cooled her face. The bridge did not fear the returning tide. It trusted the rhythm learned over many years. When she turned back, her steps felt lighter. The weight she carried belonged to the water, not her bones. Rest, she understood, is also a crossing. As sleep drew near, the teaching stayed gentle and clear. You do not need to hold what already knows how to return. Let the tide move. You may rest on the bridge. Story 13. The quiet office. An office building stood empty after midnight. Desks waited in rows. Screens dark and still. A lone security guard walked his familiar route. Footsteps echoed, steady and unhurried. He had worked many jobs, many hours. Responsibility followed him like a shadow. Even now, when nothing was required, his body remained alert. In the stillness, he remembered a passage about mindful walking, step by step, each movement complete in itself, no need to arrive anywhere else. He slowed his pace without stopping. Heel touched floor. Then too, the building seemed to breathe with him. Walls held silence kindly. The Buddha taught that peace is available in the space between intentions. When nothing is added, nothing weighs down. By the time the guard reached the far door, his shoulders had dropped. The night no longer needed watching. As sleep waited for him later, the teaching remained simple and kind. When the moment is fully met, rest follows naturally. Story 14. The cup on the sink. A ceramic cup rested upside down beside a kitchen sink. Water droplets clung briefly, then slid away. An older woman watched this small scene quietly. Her day had been filled with giving advice she once needed. She felt tired in a deep, honest way, not broken, just spent. The cup reminded her of a teaching about emptying what has been filled. The Buddha spoke of minds like vessels. When full of effort, they need turning over, not to discard what was learned, but to let excess drain away. She rinsed her hands and turned off the light. The cup stayed where it was, doing nothing. It would be ready again in the morning. As she lay down, the image followed gently. Being useful does not require staying full. Emptiness is also readiness. Sleep came like clean water. Unhurried, the quiet teaching settled without words. You may turn yourself over now. Nothing is lost. Story 15. The long hallway. A hospital hallway stretched beneath soft night lights. A maintenance worker moved slowly, polishing floors. His back ached from years of repetition. Still, his movements were careful and respectful. He had seen many people pass through here. Fear, hope, grief, relief. The hallway held them all without preference. In Buddhist thought, there is talk of equanimity, not coldness, but steady presence. The floor accepted each footprint, then released it. As the worker reached the end, the surface shone quietly behind him. No trace of effort remained. Later, in bed, his muscles relaxed. The hallway lesson stayed close. Do what is needed, then let it go. The path will remain. Story 16. The window at dawn. A man woke early without intending to. The room was dim. Morning not yet decided. He stood by the window, watching light gather slowly. His life had changed recently. Not dramatically, but enough to notice. Old plans no longer fit the same way. Buddhist teachings speak of dawn mind, seeing without rushing to name, allowing what appears to simply be. He watched colors shift without commentary. The sky did not explain itself. It simply arrived. Returning to bed, he felt calmer. Change no longer felt like an enemy. The teaching followed him into sleep. You do not have to understand the light. Just allow it to come. Story 17. The bench under trees. A wooden bench sat beneath tall trees in a city park. An older man rested there after a long walk. Leaves stirred gently above him. His thoughts had been tight all day. Comparison, regret, unfinished conversations. The bench asked nothing from him. He recalled a teaching about non-striving, how rest can be an offering to the world. Stillness teaches without speaking. As birds settled for the night, his breath matched their quiet. Later, drifting into sleep, the lesson remained. You do not need to earn rest. It is already allowed. Story 18. The drawer of letters. A small drawer held old letters tied with string. An elderly woman opened it one evening. Names from another life waited inside. She did not read them tonight. She simply touched the paper gently. Memories rose, then softened. The Buddha taught about honoring the past without living inside it. Gratitude without clinging. She closed the drawer and turned out the light. The letters rested peacefully. As sleep came, the teaching felt complete. You may love what was, without carrying it into tomorrow. Story 19. The slow elevator. An elevator descended quietly through a tall building. A tired man leaned against the wall. Meetings replayed. Words echoed. He remembered a teaching about pauses, moments between floors where nothing happens. These spaces matter. The elevator stopped smoothly. The doors opened to calm. Later, sleep arrived the same way. Softly, without announcement, pause enough, and rest appears. Story 20. The river at night. A wide river moved through darkness. Unseen, but steady, an old Zen storyteller sat nearby. Listening, the water carried reflections of distant lights. He thought of many lives, many worries, all moving, all passing. The river did not hurry them. The Buddha spoke of letting the current teach. Resistance tires, trust carries. As the night deepened, the storyteller smiled. The river flowed on, and the quiet teaching settled gently. You do not need to swim tonight. The river knows the way. Story 21. The porch after rain. The rain had ended without ceremony, leaving the porch dark and shining. An older man stepped outside, barefoot, feeling the boards cool beneath him. The day had been loud with requests, screens, and careful responses. Now only the dripping trees spoke. Slowly, without urgency, he sat in a wooden chair that knew his weight well. For years, this porch had held his pauses, moments when life felt uncertain, moments when it felt complete. Tonight, it simply held him as he was. His thoughts returned to work he no longer loved, responsibilities he kept carrying out of habit. He knew, clearly, that something was changing, yet his body still leaned toward the old rhythm. In the teachings he once heard, the Buddha spoke of timing, how understanding comes first, and release follows later. Like rain stopping before the ground fully dries. Nothing is rushed. He listened to water slide from leaves, one drop at a time. The tree did not shake itself dry. It trusted the sun would come when ready. The man felt that trust enter his chest, not as excitement, but as relief. He did not need to solve his future tonight. He only needed to stop resisting the present. As sleep approached later, the porch lesson stayed with him. When rain ends, you do not chase the clouds away. You let the earth breathe, and breathing, you rest. Story 22. The kitchen before morning. A kitchen waited quietly before dawn. Counters clean, chairs pushed in, clock ticking softly. An older woman stood there, with a mug warming her hands. She had woken early, worries already awake. Years of caring for family had shaped her days. Even now, when they no longer needed her the same way, her mind rehearsed problems that were not hers to solve. Care had become habit. She remembered a teaching about appropriate effort, how compassion includes knowing when to stop. Even kindness needs rest. Steam rose from the mug and vanished. She watched without following it. Her shoulders lowered. Just a little. The Buddha taught that clinging can wear the costume of love. Letting go does not mean withdrawing care. It means trusting others to carry their own lives. The kitchen grew lighter as morning approached. She did not rush it. Light always arrives without instruction. Returning to bed, she felt something settle. Care could soften tonight. Love did not require vigilance, as sleep reclaimed her gently. The teaching whispered through the quiet house. You may set the keys down. The door will open when needed. Story 23. The chair by the window. A simple chair stood beside a window facing the street. An elderly man sat there each evening without plan. Cars passed. Lights flickered. Neighbors moved on. He had spent his life being useful, fixing, advising, organizing. Now usefulness felt less certain. In Buddhist stories, elders often sit and watch, not because they have nothing to do, but because seeing itself is enough. He watched a bus stop, Doors open, doors close. No one stayed long. Everything knew where to go next. His breath matched the rhythm of passing traffic. In and out, without improvement. The chair held him patiently. Later, lying down, he smiled softly. The teaching felt complete without words. Presence is contribution. Watching can be rest. Story 24. The long shower. Warm water filled the small bathroom with quiet sound. A tired woman stood beneath it. Eyes closed. The day clung to her shoulders. Mistakes replayed. Conversations echoed. She had tried so hard to be precise. Perfection had followed her home. The Buddha spoke of cleansing the mind gently, not scrubbing, not erasing, allowing what is heavy to rinse away. Water traced her back, steady and forgiving. She did nothing to deserve it. It simply flowed. As she turned off the tap, the mirror fogged, softening her reflection. Even clarity could wait. Sleep found her easily that night. The lesson remained warm and simple. You do not need to be flawless. You only need to be here. Story 25. The book left unfinished. A thick book rested open on a bedside table. An older reader had stopped halfway through. Not from boredom, but from fullness. For years, he had pushed to finish everything. Projects, conversations, explanations. Completion had felt like safety. In Buddhist teaching, there is respect for incompleteness. Some things end when they have given enough. Stopping can be wisdom. He closed the book gently. The story would remain as it was. That was allowed. As sleep arrived, the thought comforted him. Not everything must be finished tonight. Rest is also an ending. Story 26. The slow walk home. Streetlights guided a quiet walk through familiar blocks. An older woman moved carefully, listening to her steps. Her workday had been full of urgency. Now, there was nowhere else to be. No one waiting for answers. Only the path beneath her feet. Mindfulness teachings speak of returning to the body. Each step complete. Each breath enough. She reached her door without hurry. The walk had already brought her home. Later, drifting into sleep, the teaching echoed kindly. Arrival is not a destination. It is noticing where you are. Story 27. The desk drawer. A desk drawer slid open with a soft sound. Inside, old notes, forgotten plans, outdated goals. An older man looked without judgment. He had chased many versions of success. Some worked, some simply passed. The Buddha taught about right livelihood, but also about release. When effort no longer fits, it may rest. He closed the drawer without sorting. Nothing needed deciding tonight. Sleep came easily afterward. The quiet teaching stayed close. You are not required to become who you once imagined. Story 28. The empty parking lot. A wide parking lot lay silent under yellow lights. An exhausted worker paused before driving home. The engine ticked as it cooled. Deadlines had pressed hard all day. The future felt heavy. Now, there was only space. Buddhist wisdom speaks of emptiness as relief. Nothing missing. Nothing demanded. He sat a moment longer. The night held him without comment. At home, sleep welcomed him fully. The teaching followed softly. Space is not absence. It is permission. Story 29. The clock without sound. A clock with no ticking hung on the wall. An elderly listener watched its hands move slowly. Silence filled the room. Time passed without pressure. Moments stacked gently Nothing urged them forward. The Buddha spoke of timeless awareness, not escaping time, but resting within it. As sleep deepened, the clock faded from notice. Time carried on kindly. The teaching settled like a blanket. You do not need to keep track tonight. Time knows how to move. Story 30. The candle near the bed. A single candle burned low beside the bed. An old Zen storyteller watched its flame sway. Years of stories lived behind his eyes. He thought of listeners everywhere, each carrying their own weight, each deserving rest. The Buddha taught loving attention, offered quietly, without demand, like a candle sharing light. He blew it out gently. Darkness arrived, friendly and wide, and the final teaching rested in the quiet. You have listened long enough. Now, sleep may speak. Story 31. The hallway light. A narrow hallway light stayed on after everyone went to bed. It cast a soft line along the floor. Steady and patient, an older man stood there in socks, listening to the house breathe. The day had been heavy with decisions that felt unfinished. He had learned to carry responsibility quietly. Even now, when nothing required action, his body stayed alert, waiting for the next demand. The light seemed to notice this and did not flicker. Years ago, he had heard a teaching about vigilance, how true care does not mean never resting, how even guardians are allowed to sleep. The hallway light did not watch from fear. It simply illuminated what was already there. No more, no less. He leaned against the wall, feeling its cool support. Thoughts slowed without effort. The house did not need him to stay awake. As he turned the light off and returned to bed, a quiet understanding followed. Awareness can rest without disappearing. You may sleep, and kindness will remain. Story 32. The cup of water. A clear glass of water sat on the bedside table. An older woman reached for it slowly. Her hands had done much today. Work conversations replayed in her mind. Words she wished she had softened. Moments she wished she could revisit. The Buddha once spoke of cooling the mind, not with force, with clarity and gentleness. She drank, feeling the water move downward. Nothing dramatic happened, and that was enough. Lying back, she noticed her breath deepen. The body knew how to settle. Regret loosened its grip. The teaching came quietly, like the water itself. What nourishes does not argue. It simply supports. Rest now, and let tomorrow wait. Story 33. The slow fan. A ceiling fan turned slowly above the bed, its rhythm steady, unhurried. An older listener watched shadows move across the ceiling. The mind wanted to plan ahead. The body wanted stillness. Neither was wrong. In Buddhist practice, balance is honored, movement and rest sharing space, neither chasing the other away. The fan did not speed up to finish. It did not stop to prove a point. It continued, calm and consistent. Sleep arrived somewhere between rotations. The lesson remained gentle and clear. You do not need to stop thinking. You only need to stop pushing. Story 34. The door left ajar. A bedroom door stayed slightly open. Light from another room touched the floor. An older man rested beneath a blanket. He had spent years closing doors tightly, finishing conversations, securing outcomes. The Buddha spoke of openness as ease. Not everything must be sealed. Some things breathe better, left open. The door did not invite disturbance. It invited air. As sleep found him, the teaching stayed soft. You may leave the door ajar tonight. Nothing needs guarding. Story 35. The street at night. A quiet street stretched beneath glowing lamps. An older woman looked out from her window. Cars passed slowly, then disappeared. Her life had once felt crowded. Now it felt wide and unfamiliar. Change had come without asking. Buddhist wisdom speaks of space as friend. Room to move. Room to rest. She turned away from the window calmly. The street continued without her watching. In bed, the teaching settled. You do not need to witness everything. Life continues kindly on its own. Story 36. The blanket. A heavy blanket rested across tired legs. An older body welcomed the weight. The day had been thin and demanding. The Buddha taught about grounding, feeling contact, letting the body lead. The blanket asked nothing. It simply stayed. Sleep arrived wrapped in warmth. The teaching lingered softly. Support does not need explanation. You may lean into it. Story 37. The unsent message. A phone rested face down on a table. An older man chose not to pick it up. The message could wait. He remembered a teaching about restraint, not suppression, choosing peace over reaction. The night felt wider without the screen. Breathing slowed naturally. As sleep came, the lesson whispered, not every thought needs expression. Silence can be kind. Story 38. The empty sink. A clean sink reflected dim light. No dishes waited. No tasks remained. An older woman stood there briefly, accustomed to doing one more thing. The Buddha spoke of completion without effort. When nothing is added, peace appears. She turned away gently. Sleep followed easily. The teaching stayed simple. When nothing calls, you may rest. Story 39. The night breeze. A window cracked open, let cool air inside. Curtains stirred lightly. An older listener breathed deeply. The day's heat released its hold. The body followed. Buddhist teachings honor natural release. No forcing. No clinging. Sleep came with the breeze. The lesson moved quietly. Let what cools cool. Let yourself follow. Story 40. The last light. A small light glowed in the corner of the room. An old Zen storyteller rested nearby. The night felt complete. He thought of all who were listening, each breathing in their own quiet space. The Buddha taught that rest is a gift, given freely, received willingly. The light dimmed. Darkness settled gently, and the final teaching arrived without words. Nothing more is needed now. Sleep may take you home. Story 41. The room that waited. The room had been quiet for hours before anyone noticed. Curtains rested without stirring. The clock moved gently, without sound. An older man stepped inside. Easing the door closed behind him. He had spent the day answering questions that never fully ended. Every response felt necessary. Every pause felt borrowed. Now, the room asked nothing at all. He sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on. His body remembered tension before remembering rest. The shoulders stayed lifted, just in case. The room remained patient. In old Buddhist teachings, there is respect for stillness, not the stillness of hiding, the stillness of being finished for now. Like a bowl set down after feeding many, the man loosened his laces slowly. Each small motion felt like permission. The bed did not hurry him. The air did not press for explanation. He lay back and watched the ceiling fade. Thoughts arrived, then thinned. The room held them without comment. He remembered a teacher saying quietly, "When effort ends, support appears." Islam tonight. The room itself was support. As sleep gathered near, the teaching settled naturally. You do not have to prepare for rest. Rest has already prepared for you. Story 42. The table after dinner. A wooden table stood cleared after dinner. Plates washed. Crumbs gone. Only the grain remained. Warm and familiar. An older woman rested her hands there briefly. She had spent years feeding others, making sure everyone had enough. Enough food. Enough guidance. Enough care. Tonight, the table was empty, and that emptiness felt kind. Nothing else needed arranging. Nothing more needed offering. Buddhist wisdom speaks of generosity that includes oneself. Giving also knows when to stop. The hands are allowed to rest. She turned off the kitchen light. The table remained, complete as it was. Later, in bed, her breath slowed easily. The teaching followed softly. What has been given does not need repeating. You may receive rest now. Story 43. The shoes by the door. 2 worn shoes sat neatly by the door. An older man had placed them there with care. They had carried him far today. Work had asked for speed and certainty. Neither came easily. Still, he showed up. In the quiet entryway, he remembered a teaching. Walking is effort. Stopping is wisdom. The shoes did not ask where he would go tomorrow. They accepted being still. As sleep arrived later, the lesson remained gentle. You do not need to know the next step tonight. Standing still is also a path. Story 44. The lamp on the floor. A small lamp rested on the floor beside the bed. Its light stayed low, almost shy. An older listener watched it quietly. The day had demanded clarity, strong opinions, clear answers. The Buddha spoke of middle light, not bright enough to strain, not dim enough to hide. The lamp offered just enough. So did the night. Sleep came without effort. The teaching settled like breath. You do not need full brightness to see. Soft light is enough. Story 45. The open window. An open window welcomed night air. Sounds drifted in and passed through. Nothing stayed long. An older woman lay listening. Her mind had held many voices today. Advice. Worry. Responsibility. Buddhist practice honors listening without holding. Hearing without keeping. The window taught this quietly. Everything entered. Everything left. As sleep deepened, the teaching stayed clear. You may let thoughts pass through. Nothing needs to stay. Story 46. The empty calendar. A calendar page hung blank for tomorrow. An older man studied it briefly. No meetings. No obligations. He felt uncertain, then relieved. Emptiness felt unfamiliar. The Buddha taught that space is not lacking. It is generous. He closed the calendar and turned away. Sleep welcomed him easily. The teaching whispered kindly, you do not need to fill every day. Being is already full. Story 47. The sink at night. A sink reflected moonlight faintly. An older woman rinsed her hands once more. Not from need, from habit. She paused, then turned off the water. Buddhist teachings speak of stopping wisely. Not every habit needs continuation. In bed, she smiled softly. The lesson stayed gentle. You may stop when the task is done. Rest follows naturally. Story 48. The chair in shadow. A chair rested in shadow near the wall. Unused. Unnoticed. An older listener chose it anyway. Sitting felt right. The Buddha taught about choosing simplicity. Not what shines. What supports. Sleep came easily afterward. The teaching remained calm. Support does not need attention. It simply holds. Story 49. The streetlight. A single streetlight hummed outside the window. Its glow steady. unwavering. An older man watched without thinking. The world felt distant and kind. The Buddha spoke of steady awareness, not moving toward, not pushing away. As sleep arrived, the light blurred softly. The lesson settled. You do not need to watch over everything. Some things stay lit on their own. Story 50. The breath that knows. Breath moved gently in the dark. An old Zen storyteller listened. Nothing else asked for attention. Years of teaching led to this. Trusting what already works. The Buddha taught that breath carries wisdom. Left alone, it leads home. The night deepened. Breathing continued. And the final teaching rested quietly. You have done enough today. Let the breath finish the rest. Story 51. The quiet staircase. The staircase rose gently through the center of the house. Each step held the faint memory of many years. An older man climbed slowly, one hand resting on the rail. The day had left him tired, in a way sleep alone could not fix. He had spent hours being careful with words. Careful not to disappoint. Careful not to upset old balances. Now the house was still, and no one was listening. Each step creaked softly, not complaining, only speaking. The sound reminded him of temples he once visited. Stone steps, worn smooth by thousands of feet. No hurry, no resistance. In those places, monks walked at dawn and dusk, not to get somewhere else, but to honor the act of moving itself. Walking was not a means, it was the practice. Halfway up, he paused, not from weakness, from noticing. His breath had slowed on its own. The Buddha taught that fatigue is not an enemy. It is a signal asking for gentleness. Effort that ignores the body becomes suffering. Effort that listens becomes wisdom. He resumed climbing without pushing. The top waited without impatience. The stairs did not measure progress. They simply received his feet. Reaching the landing, he felt something release. Not the problems of tomorrow, just the pressure to solve them tonight. That was enough. Later, lying in bed, he remembered the staircase, how it did not rush him, how it trusted his pace. The teaching settled quietly beside him. You do not need to climb faster to arrive. Each step already belongs to the path. Story 52. The drawer that closed. A small wooden drawer slid open with a familiar sound. Inside were papers from many seasons of life. Receipts, notes, plans that once felt urgent. An older woman stood there in the soft kitchen light. Her day had been filled with revisiting old decisions, wondering what might have gone differently, wondering if she had waited too long. She lifted one paper, then another. Not reading closely, just feeling the weight of time. The drawer had held these things faithfully. In Buddhist teaching, there is respect for memory, but also guidance about release. The past is a teacher, not a prison. She placed the papers back gently. The drawer slid closed without resistance. Nothing protested. Nothing demanded more attention. The sound of the drawer closing felt complete, like a sentence ending naturally. No punctuation needed. Later, as she prepared for bed, her thoughts softened, not erased, just less sharp, less insistent. The Buddha taught that clinging often hides in revisiting. Returning again and again does not always bring clarity. Sometimes clarity comes from stopping. As sleep arrived, the drawer lesson stayed close. You may close the door on what has already taught you. The night does not ask for review. It invites rest. Story 53. The street with no name. A narrow street stretched quietly under dim lights. It had no sign, no name, just pavement and shadows. An older man walked there after a long shift. His job had labels, titles, expectations. Out here, there were none. His footsteps echoed lightly. The street did not respond. It did not care who he was during the day. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a reminder: identity is useful, but temporary, like a uniform set down at night. The man slowed his pace. Breath matched step. Step matched breath. He felt himself returning to something simpler, not smaller, just quieter. At the end of the street, he turned back. There was nowhere else to go, and nothing missing. Later, sleep came easily. The teaching whispered without words: you are not required to be someone tonight. You may simply be. Story 54. The waiting kettle. A kettle sat on the stove, warming slowly. No whistle yet. No urgency. An older woman leaned against the counter. Her thoughts had been racing earlier, planning conversations that might never happen. She watched steam gather faintly, then disappear. The Buddha taught patience as a form of wisdom. Rushing does not shorten time. It only tightens the body. The kettle waited without anxiety. Heat did its work quietly. When the water was ready, she poured it calmly. Tea leaves opened without instruction. Later, in bed, warmth spread through her chest. The lesson stayed simple. When the moment is ready, it will speak. Until then, waiting is enough. Story 55. The coat on the chair. A heavy coat rested on a chair by the door. An older man had worn it all day. Protection against cold, noise, responsibility. He did not hang it up right away. He just looked at it. The coat seemed tired too. In Buddhist teaching, there is a recognition. We wear many layers to move through the world. They are useful. They are not permanent. He placed the coat down gently. The chair accepted its weight. Later, under blankets, his body softened. The lesson followed quietly. You may take off what protected you today. Nothing threatens you now. Story 56. The unanswered email. A computer screen glowed faintly in the dark. An email remained unsent. Words half written. An older woman closed the laptop without finishing. Not from avoidance, from care. The Buddha taught about right timing. Some truths need rest before being spoken. The room felt calmer without the glow. Her shoulders released. Sleep arrived naturally. The teaching stayed gentle. Not everything needs response tonight. Silence can be wise. Story 57. The garden hose. A coiled garden hose lay quietly beside the house. Water had flowed earlier. Now it rested. An older man remembered years of tending, trying to control growth, trying to fix outcomes. The Buddha spoke of effort balanced with trust. You water, then you step back. The hose did not apologize for resting. Neither did the soil. Later, sleep felt earned without striving. The lesson lingered. Do what you can, then let life finish the work. Story 58. The bus stop bench. A bench waited beneath a dim shelter. No bus in sight. No rush. An older listener sat there alone. Life had been full of departures lately, endings that arrived quietly. In Buddhist thought, waiting is not wasted time. It is a space where nothing is required. The bench offered that space freely. Later, lying in bed, the teaching stayed close. You do not need to arrive tonight. Waiting itself can be rest. Story 59. The folded blanket. A blanket lay folded at the foot of the bed, used many times. still reliable. An older woman unfolded it slowly. Her body recognized comfort before thought did. The Buddha taught about familiarity. What has supported you before often will again. Wrapped in warmth. She slept easily. The teaching settled. You do not need something new. What has held you still can. Story 60. The night that holds. The night stretched wide and untroubled. An old Zen storyteller listened to its depth. Breath moved without instruction. All the stories of the day softened. Nothing needed adding. Nothing needed removing. The Buddha taught that peace is not created. It is uncovered when effort rests. Darkness did not threaten. It embraced. And the final teaching arrived like a whisper. You are already being held. Sleep is simply noticing. Story 61. The porch light at midnight. The porch light glowed softly against the quiet night. It did not shine far. It did not try to illuminate the street. It simply marked the doorway with calm certainty. An older man stood inside, watching through the window. His day had been filled with second-guessing. Every decision felt heavier after dark. At night, unfinished thoughts grew louder. He had lived long enough to recognize this pattern. The mind grows restless when the body finally stops. Like a child, asking questions only when the house is quiet. Tonight, he did not argue with it. He stepped onto the porch, letting the door close gently. The night air felt cool and steady. The porch light hummed faintly. Unconcerned with his worries, it had one job, and it was doing it well. Years ago, he learned a simple Buddhist teaching. You do not need to light the whole path. You only need to see the next step. The rest will appear when you arrive. He leaned against the railing and breathed. The light did not follow his breath. The breath did not adjust to the light. They coexisted easily. Thoughts came and went, like distant cars. None stopped. None demanded attention. The night accepted them all. When he returned inside, sleep followed him closely. The teaching stayed gentle and clear. You are not responsible for the whole night. Just rest at the doorway. Story 62. The quiet sink before bed. The sink reflected a small square of light. Water rested silently inside the basin. An older woman stood there, hands on the counter. Her mind replayed the day's conversations. Words spoken too quickly. Silences held too long. The usual review arrived on time. She turned on the tap and rinsed her hands slowly. Warm water moved over skin, then disappeared. Nothing stayed long enough to argue. In the Buddha's teachings, cleansing is often quiet. No confession, no judgment, just release. She noticed her shoulders drop. Not all at once, just enough. The sink did not remember yesterday's water. It did not worry about tomorrow's use. It accepted each moment, then let it go, turning off the tap. She smiled faintly. The lesson had arrived without effort. Later, lying down, sleep came naturally. The teaching whispered kindly, you do not need to carry what has already washed away. Rest is clean enough. Story 63. The bookstore after closing. A small bookstore sat dark behind locked doors. Inside, shelves held stories quietly. An older man stood outside, remembering. He had spent years seeking answers in books, guidance, meaning, reassurance that he was doing life correctly. Tonight, the windows reflected only his face, calmer than before, less demanding. The Buddha taught that wisdom ripens slowly. Reading opens doors. Living teaches what stays. He walked on without regret. The books would wait. They always did. Later, In bed, sleep felt like a chapter ending. The lesson rested softly. You have already read enough for today. The next page can wait. Story 64. The empty chair at the table. One chair remained empty at the table. Dinner was over. Dishes put away. The room breathed again. An older woman noticed the empty space. It used to hold someone dear. Now it held memory. Grief had softened over time. Not gone. Just quieter. Buddhist teachings speak of loving without clinging, remembering without reopening wounds. She placed her hand on the table briefly, then let it rest at her side. The chair did not accuse. It simply remained. Later, sleep carried her gently. The teaching stayed warm. Love does not disappear when form changes. It rests in new shapes. Story 65. The hallway clock. A clock hung in the hallway, ticking softly. An older man paused beneath it. Time felt heavier at night. He had tried to outrun it once, then to manage it. Now he simply listened. The Buddha taught that time is a river. You cannot hold it. You can only float. The ticking slowed in his awareness. Or perhaps his attention softened. Later, sleep arrived without ceremony. The teaching followed quietly. You do not need to keep pace. Time will carry you. Story 66. The mail left unopened. Mail rested on the counter in a neat stack. An older woman chose not to open it. Tonight, it could wait. Obligations often followed her home. Numbers, requests, reminders. The Buddha spoke of wise postponement, knowing when action helps, knowing when rest helps more. She turned off the light and walked away. The mail stayed silent. Sleep welcomed her kindly. The teaching remained simple. Not everything needs attention right now. Rest answers first. Story 67. The long drive home. Headlights stretched across the dark road. An older man drove steadily. No rush. The day had been crowded with noise. Now, the road listened. Buddhist practice honors steady movement, neither forcing nor stopping. The car hummed gently beneath him. The road accepted his tires. When he reached home, sleep followed easily. The teaching stayed calm. You do not need to hurry toward rest. It arrives alongside you. Story 68. The bowl on the shelf. A ceramic bowl rested high on a shelf. Unused tonight. Still whole. An older woman looked at it briefly. It had served many meals. Tonight, it served as stillness. The Buddha taught that usefulness includes rest. A bowl is still a bowl when empty. She turned away peacefully. Sleep came without effort. The lesson settled gently. You remain complete, even when not in use. Story 69. The street, after curfew. The street lay quiet under pale lights. No movement. No expectation. An older listener watched from a window. The world had finally slowed enough to match his breath. Buddhist wisdom honors quiet hours. When effort sleeps, when being is enough. Later, eyes closed easily. The teaching whispered softly, the world can hold itself for a while. You may rest. Story 70. The breath at the end of day. Breath moved in and out. Uncounted. An old Zen storyteller listened deeply. Nothing else asked for presence. Years of practice led here, not to mastery, to trust. The Buddha taught that breath is a home, always available, always patient. The night deepened kindly. Breathing continued, and the final teaching settled without sound. You have arrived where you already are. Sleep knows the way. Story 71. The porch. Swing at dusk. The porch swing moved slightly in the evening air, not enough to creak, just enough to feel alive. An older woman sat there, feet touching the ground. The day had asked for patience she did not always have. Small misunderstandings, lingering worries about money and health. Nothing dramatic, just wearing. She rested her hands in her lap and let the swing move her. Back and forth. No destination. No schedule. Long ago, she learned a Buddhist story about balance. How effort and ease must take turns. How leaning too far in either direction creates strain. The swing taught this without words. It did not move on its own. It did not need pushing now. Momentum carried it gently. She watched the sky change color slowly. Blue softening into gray. Gray becoming kind. No moment rushed the next. Her breath matched the rhythm beneath her. Thoughts came, then loosened. She did not follow them. She did not push them away. When darkness settled, she stood carefully. The swing came to rest on its own. No instruction needed. Later, in bed, her body remembered the motion. Sleep arrived like the final sway. The teaching stayed warm and close. You do not need to keep moving to feel supported. Stillness will find you when it is time. Story 72. The quiet laundromat. Machines hummed softly in the late evening. Only a few lights remained on. An older man sat on a plastic chair, waiting. Clothes turned slowly behind glass. Round and round. No urgency. No correction. His life had felt like that lately. Repeating patterns. Habits that no longer felt useful. Questions without sharp answers. In Buddhist teaching, repetition is not always mistake. Sometimes it is refinement. Sometimes it is waiting for readiness. He listened to the steady rhythm. The sound filled the space kindly. No one expected anything from him here. When the cycle ended, the machine stopped on its own. No drama, no announcement, just completion. He folded the clothes carefully. Warmth lingered in the fabric. Clean and simple. At home, sleep came easily. The lesson stayed gentle. Everything has its cycle. You do not need to rush the ending. Story 73. The Night Library. A small lamp lit the corner of a quiet room. Books lined the walls. Unmoving. An older listener sat in a chair, hands resting. He did not open any book tonight. Words had already filled the day. Advice. Explanations. Instructions. The Buddha taught that wisdom also comes from silence, from allowing what is known to settle, like dust falling to the ground. The books did not mind staying closed. They knew they would be read again. He closed his eyes briefly, then longer. Sleep entered without effort. The teaching remained clear. You do not need more answers right now. Rest is enough knowledge for tonight. Story 74. The cooling soup. A pot of soup sat on the stove. Lid slightly open. Steam escaped slowly. An older woman watched from the table. She had cooked with care. Measured ingredients. Adjusted heat. Now, nothing more was required. Cooling would happen on its own. The Buddha spoke of letting results settle. Action ends. Patience begins. She turned off the light and left the kitchen. The soup continued its quiet work. Later, wrapped in blankets, she smiled softly. The lesson warmed her. You do not need to watch over what is already done. Rest allows things to finish naturally. Story 75. The late train platform. A nearly empty platform stretched under fluorescent lights. An older man waited for the last train. His briefcase rested at his feet. Work had ended hours ago. Responsibility lingered anyway. The body was tired. Buddhist teachings speak of thresholds, places between effort and rest. This platform was one of them. He listened to the distant sound of rails. Not yet here, not absent either. When the train arrived, it did so calmly. Doors opened without urgency. At home, sleep came deeply. The teaching traveled with him. Waiting is not wasted time. It is part of the journey. Story 76, The House That Settles. The house made quiet sounds as it cooled. Wood adjusting, pipes sighing. An older woman lay listening. The day had been tense. Small arguments, unfinished apologies. The Buddha taught that tension releases naturally when conditions change. Night is one such condition. The house did not hold grudges. It simply adjusted. Her body followed. Muscles softened. Jaw unclenched. Sleep arrived like a deep exhale. The teaching settled gently. You do not need to resolve everything before resting. Some things soften on their own. Story 77. The slow elevator down. An elevator descended quietly through many floors. An older man leaned against the wall. Lights passed one by one. He had spent the day up high. Big decisions. Heavy consequences. The Buddha spoke of returning to ground, letting gravity do its work. The elevator asked nothing of him. It carried him anyway. Later, in bed, his body remembered that descent. Sleep followed naturally. The teaching stayed close. You do not need to hold yourself up all the time. Support exists beneath you. Story 78. The Empty Notebook. A notebook lay open on the desk. Its pages blank. An older woman looked at it briefly. She had written lists all day. Tasks. Reminders. Corrections. The Buddha taught about beginner's mind. Not knowing. Not filling. She closed the notebook gently. Tonight. Nothing needed recording. Sleep came quietly. The lesson remained kind. You do not need to plan tomorrow right now. This moment is complete. Story 79. The Streetlight Through Leaves. A streetlight shone through tree branches. Shadows moved softly on the wall. An older listener watched from bed. The day's images replayed faintly. Faces. Voices. Buddhist wisdom honors impermanence. Even light does not stay still. The shadows shifted without effort. So did his thoughts. Sleep arrived like darkness deepening. The teaching whispered softly, "Nothing you saw today needs to remain. Let the light move on." Story 80. The Quiet Ending. The night felt full but unburdened. An old Zen storyteller rested within it. Breath moved freely. Stories of effort, worry, love, and release settled into silence. The Buddha taught that silence is not empty. It is where understanding rests. Darkness held everything kindly, and the final teaching arrived without sound. You have listened enough. Now, let sleep listen for you. The night is already doing its work. You do not need to help it. Your breathing knows the rhythm now. Slow, steady, kind to your body. Each breath arrives, then leaves, without effort. Nothing more is expected of you. Nothing needs to be solved or remembered. The day has loosened its grip. Thoughts may still drift by. You do not have to follow them. Let them pass like distant lights, fading on their own. Feel how the bed supports you, how gravity gently holds you in place. You are safe to rest here. If the mind listens for something, let it listen to the quiet. If the body waits for permission, let this be it. In the old teachings, rest is not earned. It is received, just like sleep. So now, allow yourself to sink a little deeper, not going anywhere, just settling. The night will keep watch for you. The breath will continue its soft work. And when sleep comes, you do not need to notice. You will already be there,